All right, let's move on to our next week of coding instruction. Hope you guys are doing well. We're going to dive into lesson 6, which is all about sprites. So now we're finally going to be able to add something besides squares, rectangles, and circles into our coding. Now this is a longer lesson, so I think I'm going to break it up into 2 different videos because YouTube only allows up to 15 minutes of video. And I know I will go over that if I don't split it up into 2. All right, so sprites. Let's continue on with our lesson 6. All right, again, part 1 is just a overview of what we're going to be covering. We're going to be using the draw sprite. In the yellow group world, we're going to continue using variables to create the sprites. We'll also take a look at sprite scale. So there's some new code we will be using. Don't forget to be referring back to your Google Doc because you have some questions to answer there. All right, so make sure you read through this and are ready to move on. Continue on to 2. Again, here is a video. There are 3 questions here for you to answer up at the top. So make sure you answer those on the Google Doc after you watch the video. Moving on to 3. So here's kind of a layout. So I want you to pay attention. 1, you have code up here above the display area, and animation. Animation is where you're going to have to go to add any sprites. What sprites are you going to be using? You also now have a sprite section in your toolbox. And in there you have the variable for sprite. This just creates the sprite. Then you have a set animation, which would be in here too. So sprite set animation. This tells the code which sprite you are using because you're going to, at a time, you're going to be using several different sprites. And then you always have to end with the draw sprites. If you don't actually tell it to draw, they're just going to be sitting there and not actually appear. So again, make sure you read through this and are understanding what is going to be going on. Let's continue on to number 4. So now let's actually start taking a look. So creating sprites, creates a new sprite and assigns it a value. The default name is sprite, so you'll want to change it to something more meaningful, especially when you're going to be using multiple sprites. They can't all be called sprite. So sprites only appear on the screen when you draw them there. Calling draw sprites will draw all of your created sprites on the screen. All right, so this program includes comments that let you know where to place the code, but otherwise is blank. Your program should look like the image on the right. So add the variable sprite. So again, I need to go to the sprite tab. It's going to go under create sprite. So we're not worried about images right now. Okay, and it says you can ignore that yellow triangle right there. And then add back in the world, the draw sprites underneath the drawing. So again, these gray boxes just give you information kind of what to do there. They are not meant to do anything to the code. Again, you have something here, hint, they're drawn from the center. So they're drawn like the circles and ellipses are. So whenever you're thinking about location, it's always going to be from the center. So if we run it, we should have a gray square in our center. So that means we got our variable created here. Again, if you wanted to call it something, right now it doesn't really matter too much, but if we want to call it square, we'll get the same thing. All right, let's move on. Number 5. Okay, so this is a question. When run, where will the my sprite be located? So go ahead, take a guess, using what's here. Here's your location, 300, 100. If you want to put your mouse over here and look for it, go ahead and do that, but I'll let you guys do that one on your own. All right, number 6, intro to sprites. This program should create 2 new sprites, one on the left of the screen and one on the right, but only one is drawing. You don't need to add any code, just rearrange the code that is already present and make sure that both sprites show up like the picture on the right. So if I run it, you only get the one square. So what's going on here is we create a sprite and then we draw it, then we create a sprite, but it's not getting drawn. So we only need to rearrange. So like I said, you always want that draw sprite to be on the bottom. So that will make sure that both sprites are getting drawn. So when you, again, have multiple sprites, one draw sprite will draw anything above it. Okay, moving on. I believe this is another video again. So watch the video, learn a little bit more about sprites. And then again, you have 2 questions there. Make sure you answer them on the Google Sheet for part 7. So make sure you read those questions before you watch the video so you know what you're looking for. All right, the animation tabs. This is just some general information. So we have the code tab. That's where you actually put in your blocks to create the code. And you have the animation tab. This is where you find images to create into sprites that you can then animate. You can change size. You can do some coloring. You can draw your own sprites. You can download sprites, images. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Crop it down if you don't want it so big. That would be important if you start creating games and things like that. Again, make sure you're understanding all the parts there. Okay, actually add in the images now. So over on the animation tab, I'm not going to click it yet. You'll see 3 images that have been loaded for you. You can get to the animations tab by clicking animation above the display area. So if I click animation, we have an alien, a bunny, and a flybot. So you remember these names because you'll need to know how to refer to them later on. Okay, go back to the code. Once you have created a sprite, which it looks like it's already been created, use the sprite set animation command. There it is. If I go into sprites, you'll be able to see it there now, to change the look of your sprite from the rectangle to a picture. All the images you have loaded in the animation tab show up in this sprite animation dropdown. So if I click here right now, the alien is selected. We can change it to bunny or flybot because those are the names of the sprites we have in the animation tab. So if we run it, it should be the alien. There he is. Right. So change the sprite to your favorite image from the animation tab. So let's do the flybot. I think I usually do the bunny. We'll do something different. A sprite that is set to an image has already been created for you. Run the code to see how it works. Kind of already did that. There, see now this is the flybot. Change the input of the set animation command to change the look of the sprite. Try out all the different images. There's the flybot. Let's try the bunny. There it is. Now, again, if this draw sprites is above what the animation is, I bet we are going to get a gray square. Okay, so it's in the same location, but again, because that draw sprites has to be on the bottom because it doesn't know what to draw until you tell it to. Okay, moving on to number 10. Okay, upload your own image. So this means this code is going to transfer on to another part of a lesson or another lesson itself. So anything you change here is going to change in any other parts that it's connected to. So if you come back to this one, you've already worked on the next one, it's going to look like the last thing you've done on all of them. So that's just something to kind of be aware of. So whenever you see this little icon here, it's a continuation to or from another lesson. Okay. All right, upload your own image. You can also use the animation tab to upload or draw your own image. So you're going to make a flying kite. You can search the web for an image or create a new animation from scratch by drawing your own kite. So here in the animation, new, you can draw your own. So it works a lot like any kind of paint. This is not going to be a beautiful kite by any means. Let's use the paint bucket. Let's change my color, purple, bright purple, or black. Apparently I did not get that. Then just do a Control Z. Let's have some rotation, some flips. Oh, there's an undo somewhere. Oh, I'll just use the keyboard shortcut. Okay. Oh, because it's all the way down there. All right, now I've got a purple. All right. There is my purple kite, and go back to black. Get some kind of string going on there. To my purple. And some bows on there. There we go, beautiful. Okay, so that's one way you can do. You can also upload. So when you go to look online for an image, one, look for those PNG images. Those are the images we used with our Google Drawing that have the transparent background. Otherwise, you're going to get a white square on top of like a black background, and that's not going to look very good. So look for PNGs. The other thing is that it has to be under 100 kilobytes. Now, that's not very much in regards to pictures file size. So if you go back to the Google Doc, I found some at KISS Clipart. So there's 4 here you can use if you don't want to try and use your own. Let's go to this green and purple kite. So one reason I like this is you don't have to sign up for it. It's a free download, and it tells you right here how big the file size. So this is only 28 kilobytes. I can go up to 100. Even if it's like 95, I don't think code will accept it. So I make sure it's quite a bit below 100 kilobytes. So all I have to do is click on free download. It'll start automatically. Should see something coming down here. And again, this will save automatically to your computers. All right, it has now been downloaded. I'm going to go back to, maybe if I can get to it, code. Now I can upload my image. That looks slightly different. I'm on the Mac where you guys are on, probably on your Chromebooks. If it thinks. There it is. All right, and it was in my download folder. Probably that KISS Clipart should have probably given it a better name so I know what it was. And open, and it's uploading. And now that kite looks a lot better than mine. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to click the trash can to delete my kite. That does not look very good. All right. Oops, apparently I have zoomed in. All right, so let's go back to code. All right, so that is how you upload an image. Now we have to put, so it's already been created. It's called kite. So I now need to find my sprite, set my animation. So remember, whenever you're using a name for a variable, you have to refer back to it, because I'm drawing the kite, I have to use the same name as the variable so it knows which variable I'm talking about. Okay, animation, KISS Clip, yeah, I'm gonna go back and give this a better name. There we go. Close. Let's change that to kite. That makes a whole lot more sense. All right, so now let's make sure, yep, we have a draw sprite. Everything else, the background's been drawn for us, and holy cow, that's a gigantic kite. Don't worry about that right now. Just make sure you can get a kite onto this program, all right? Position should already be done for us. We don't need to worry about that either. Okay, number 11, now we are going to change the size. We're going to use the sprite scale, okay? So under sprites, we're going to find sprite scale. And again, which sprite am I talking about? I'm talking about the one called kite. So I need to change the name there. Now, for scale, it works as like 100%, but as a fraction. So if I do a 1, that's the original size. And you saw that mine was very much too big. So let's try 0.5 to, or it likes to have a 0 in front. Let's try, too far. Okay, let's try to make it half the size to see how it goes. And sometimes it's just some trial and error, and that is still too big. I'm gonna have to, let's try like 0.1. Now we're getting a little too small. Okay, let's try 0.2. That's looking a little bit better, but my line is not quite the same. So that's where I come back to the variable to find the position. So it looks like my X needs to increase a little bit. So instead of 300, I'm going to set that to 350. And there we go. So there it's like you hold in the string for your kite, and there's the tail. Okay, I could even move it down maybe a little bit more too, so I can actually see my kite a little bit better. There it is, okay? So that's how you can use your own images to create them into sprites. Okay, this next one is an assessment, so I'm gonna leave this one a little bit more to yourself. So you have codes over here, and you have to click and drag to see which one of these it matches. Really pay attention to where that draw sprites is located, that block code, okay? I'm gonna stop right here for this video, and I will continue on with part 13 in the next video. All right. We'll see you in a bit.